Because they owe them some 10 million cedis, be like that.
Oh, I think it might be even more. They said there's some equipment that we really, really need that government needs to pay them back for.
Owes everybody.
Everybody.
The whole country is a crime scene.
We've been making a tally, Johnny. We said government owes who? The elderly.
It owes the elderly, it owes the able-bodied, it owes the persons living with disabilities, school children.
Government owes the future.
Yeah, government owes the future, actually. It owes the past, the present, and the future.
Government owes Bank of Ghana.
Hey!
They owe Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana and say, my friend, cut your head. Not your head.
Not your head, cut your head off.
Imagine that the lender of last resort is broke.
And this is the first in a long. I mean,
honestly,
It's a serious matter.
And
in recent history,
and if you follow The Economist, you get a heart attack when they break down the issues. Because I was trying to think, what does it mean if the Bank of Ghana has lost this money? What does it really mean? And my economist friend Jerome, shout out to you, he said, well, all it means is that if everybody the Bank of Ghana owes goes and says, they don't have. In fact, they have to find that 55 billion cedis from somewhere.
Yesterday, somebody said that, look, this perhaps will be karma. Because this was the same thing that the Bank of Ghana told the banks that they collapsed.
All the indications.
Yes, all the indications, they collapsed.
Them.
And people started going to them for their monies and give me my money again, and that's what brought them. So now if everybody goes, the Bank of Ghana will collapse. But I buy the teaching.
Until yesterday, many people didn't know that Bank of Ghana was even running a profit and loss account. They didn't think they were in that space. And this is very revealing because people were asking, Bank of Ghana, does it do business for
business
it?
Apart from Ajana 1, Ajana 2, what other
they have
business
interest
could you do?
in other businesses.
Because
those monies that they lend out, they also get some this from the banks. That's number one. You also invest in a few other businesses. I was surprised.
The quasi government institutions resulted in about 6 billion.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what struck me was how much we spent on just repairing vehicles.
Yes.
What kind of vehicles are these?
Yes. So,
I
mean, we said this, we have been saying it. You cannot, you see, it's all because of that principle. You cannot give what you don't have. It's as simple as that. If you don't have it, you can't give. If you give, it means you are eye on something. That you want to, balance yourself.
Your leg is on something.
Exactly. If your leg is hanging and you want to go
but that's how salaried workers sometimes behave.
Exactly.
He's expecting the salary, so he goes to buy everything on credit. And then by the time the salary appears, it's finished.
Or sometimes he knows exactly how much salary is coming on, but by some weird reason, he thinks this month I'm going to go all out. He knows how much is coming on very well, that it's not going to match up to what has been spent, but what can come. They say it's inshallah and vibes.
Yeah, and Takashi. Well, the Ghanaian Times this morning says minority dismisses Finance Minister's economic recovery claim. Ghana elected to UNWTO Executive Council. Russia, Africa resolved to develop mutual partnerships. And at the mid-year budget review presentation, government targets new growth strategy to return economy to debt sustainability by 2028, create industrial parks, economic zones for sustainable growth. That's what they're on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. What do you have, Crosby?
On the front page of the Finder newspaper, it says 2023 GDP growth revised to 1.5%. Headline inflation pegged at 31.3%. The story is on page 2. You see on the front page also, you see Ghana joins Executive Council of the UN World Tourism Organization, and government focused on environment that encourages investment, fosters entrepreneurship. The story is on page 9. And guess whose picture is there? The picture of the Information Minister, Kojo Nkrumah.
Where has he been?
We've not seen him in a long time.
We haven't seen him these days.
Also, UK government supports Ghana with 3.9
William, be calming down.
3.9 million pounds to sanitize small-scale mining sector. Come to sanitize small-scale mining sector. There's Venture Capital Trust Fund blows 1.7 million cedis on CEO's residence, but it is not occupied in 4 years.
Okay, William.
There's a very interesting newspaper here, the Metro Lens.
It comes once in a while.
Relevance, our pride. Yes. They are very relevant.
Come on.
Several empowerment and humanitarian projects to host African Women and Children Conference on Climate Action. Do African leaders understand the peace language? Ani Ampofo is asking. we've turned no corner. You rather deepen our woes to force into Uforiata. That's page 5 of the paper.
All right. Let's get into the details. What are we discussing, Helen?
Well, this one is on 3news.com, and Adongo describes Uforiata's mid-year budget review as a funeral dirge.
Oh, does he have a problem with him?
Yeah, well, I'm getting into that story right
one
about
white
now.
To come and give
Yeah, with a brown bag.
But who's the funeral?
3 or 4. How many Bible verses did he quote yesterday? 4, 5?
Don't make a mistake. Funerals, we wear white sometimes.
Oh, when the person is very old,
very old.
very old,
Then
you wear white.
Putting the economy back on the right track.
Let's get into the details. Again, you can find the story on 3news.com. So, Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central constituency, Isaac Adongo, says he had to wake up and wake his colleagues up while the finance minister was reading the mid-year budget review on Parliament Monday, July 31st. He said those who were shouting, yeah, yeah, were actually sleeping during the presentation. The National Democratic Congress, NDC, made this known after the finance minister presented the 2023 budget review. Mr. Uforiata had announced no supplementary budget, but further reviewed the revenue targets and the GDP growth rate. The minority was not enthused by that at all. We all listened to the funeral dirge. The ranking member on the finance committee told journalists, at some point I had to wake up and ask them to wake up from their sleep and to continue to listen to him. So when they finally got up and shouted, yeah, yeah, I was so surprised by that. Mr. Adongo was hard on the Bank of Ghana over the seeming declining economy because Bank of Ghana, as we speak today, cannot undertake monetary policy without printing money because it doesn't have money yet. Yet you say you've turned the corner. I'm picking this story to kick off the news review. One, because it involves the minority caucus. And they're always very vocal at this stage of things when the budget is being read. But a lot of things happen with the approval of Parliament. When we talk about loans that have passed through, they've not passed through without the approval of the minority caucus. What have they been doing in that time when they've also been saying yeah, yeah to some of the loans that government has put forth? I think when lawyer Eduji Tamaklo of the NDC comms team came here, he says that they have extended a lot of goodwill to the governing to the government in terms of agreeing to some of these loans. But other than, them having gripes and a lot to say, what have they been doing? They've also been agreeing to some of these loans. They are complicit in where we find ourselves today as well.
Again, you know that for some of the arguments that are made for some of the loans that are contracted, very genuine reasons. So, for example, today the president is cutting short for affordable housing somewhere around the Pokwasi area.
That's right.
That has not received parliamentary approval, but the government is going ahead anyway. So, like the National Cathedral, the government already is committing.
Okay, that is true.
Yeah, the government is already committing. So once they come, what do?
I mean, that is true, and that is a fair point.
But must the government be lawless? Because it's a government led by a president. So must the lawlessness continue? Because this is plainly lawless. I mean, you have Saglemi sitting there.
That's right.
You have not done anything about it. It's rotting away. And then the next thing is you are thinking of a new, affordable housing, which in its stricto sensu is not even affordable to begin with. Because all of us in this room, whose monies will be used to construct those, if they ask you to fork out that amount of money which is needed to buy a unit, 2-3 bedroom unit of the affordable housing, you can't immediately find it.
Yes, William will, but I will not.
And there will not be a mortgage opportunity for you to be able to buy it and pay over time, maybe a 10-15 year period. They are taking the money cash down. For all you people have actually even bought the property now as we speak.
And the last time we heard, the Saglami project was going to go on through a PPP arrangement.
Right.
That's right.
We were expecting to hear the completion of that negotiation with the PPP, the partners.
That's right.
We know that something is going on there.
That's right.
Well, I haven't heard anything in that respect, and we are going to cut short for another one. 8,000 units, they say.
Yeah.
And then they are supposed to be affordable. When we get there, we'll cross the bridge. But they are asking us to appreciate them for turning the corner because their own projection of 2.8% fiscal consolidation has been revised downwards to 1.5, which is about the half.
Yeah.
And then the inflation figure of about 28% that they 18.9% that they projected in the main budget. We're supposed to end the year on 31.3%. So inflation is not going to go any lower. Recently in the US, they were targeting 2%. They are doing 5%, and it's the highest in 22 years. 5%. So if you are doing 31.3 at the end of the year, and we are saying we are turning the corner, which corner? You see, so all the figures show that we haven't done very well, and I'm sure we are doing these figures because the IMF is on our necks.
Yeah.
If we're just going out,
we would have done
all of it together. And then we'll
so yesterday, Kenofori Atta, within the first 15 or so minutes, I quoted about 3 or so Bible verses. One of the Bible verses that he quoted was Psalm 118, verse 12. Maybe I read 11 so that it makes 10 and 11 and then 12. It says, verse 10, all nations surrounded me, but in the name of the Lord, I cut them down. They surrounded me on every side, but in the name of the Lord, I cut them down. Now, verse 12. They swarmed around me like bees, but they were consumed as quickly as burning thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them down. This morning, if you disagree, we cut you down.
Please, can you read that 1:12 again for me, please?
They swarmed around me like bees, but they were consumed as quickly as burning thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them down.
If the figures are too high,
cut them down. Cut them down. If the government is too large, cut them down.
They will cut. That one they will cut.
Expenditure by like some 20 billion cents.
20 billion cedis. That one is word of mouth.
Nice cut.
You know, because
you want to see what they are using it for.
No. I want to see them actually cutting. Because I know the budget statements that they make, allocating monies to ministries and things, and the monies don't go.
Yeah.
The money
allocation
because
and disbursement is different.
You've cut. Doesn't mean that you are going to cut. So let's finish the year and see whether you can make actual savings of those.
Whether the cutting fell or
exactly.
Because it's not the first time we've been told some cuts are being made, and we didn't get a progress report on what happened when the first cuts were made. How much did we save?
The first cut was 30% of all government appointees, and then 20%. Council of State said they were also volunteering 20% of their allowances. So that was to begin in May 2022. We are in July, so 1 year and more has come and gone. It only makes sense that a certain kind of progress report is given to us that, this is how much we have been able to deduct. This is how much it has saved the economy. This is what we have used the money for. But if you just announce it and go away, because somebody in another government, John Mahama's government, they used theirs to build chip compounds. Questions were asked as to whether the chip compounds, whether they came for a refund or not. Those questions are there.
Right.
But they showed you saw the chip compounds. In your case, what are you using the money for? Are you even deducting at all? Or it's just inshallah Takashian vibes?
Johnny, when the finance minister was reading the Bible verses that was talking about him being swamped by bees and cutting them down, does it mean that his, the call for him to resign by the majority MPs has fallen water inside?
Well, yesterday, you see, Habib Idrisu, Deputy Majority Chief Whip, he sat where you're sitting, and he said that call is dead on arrival.
No, but when the spokesperson for those majority MPs, when he came to key points, on 3FM, he mentioned they still stand by their demands, although they've not heard from the president.
Well, he will stand by his demand, but his leader in parliament, who sat where he was sitting, said, forget it. In fact, when I asked him a question, I'm getting into his throat. That we journalists, we like that in Kratu.
It's a very relevant question. I don't know why now we should shy away from it. If anything, now more than ever, we have to revive the conversation, because now we've seen that the scorecard.
They swarmed around me like bees.
No. This kind of emotional blackmail will not work.
In the name of the Lord, I cut them down. You have been cut down.
See, you know what would make a Bible verse like this relevant? If the media budget review came and the turnaround was evident, then you can say, I've cut you down because you were naysayers. But to come with even worse metrics and to say that those are around you cut, what do you mean?
Verse 13 says, I was pushed back and about to fall, but the Lord helped me. I cut you down, Helen. I cut you down. You have been cut down. Whatever you do, Furiata has cut you down.
My goodness.
This morning, cut it down.
Cut your enemies down.
Cut your enemies down, by all means. You have the support of the president. Cut them down.
Budget, the review budget was described as Nkabom budget. But I was wondering what the basis is for this. Is he asking the minority or all Ghanaians to help them or to join them
That has been the core. You know, I like the way the government titles its budgets, even though I'm not too keen on the arcanization of all the budgets. We have had a Sempa budget, we have had a Juma budget, we have had Impuntuo budget, we have had a Jenkwa budget. This one is the Nkabum budget. So Asempa is good news. Ejuma is work, right? Impuntuo is progress. Ajenkwa saving us from who? And then now they're asking us to Nkabum. If you listen to them, it tells a certain story that in the beginning, Asempa Biamati, 2017, yeah, we're all happy. And then we went to, we'll create more jobs. Remember? Yes, a Juma budget. And then they say, we have created the jobs now. Impuntuo. And then now they said, Ajinkwa, Bejiankwa. Now they say, Yankambum.
You see?
But in the middle of it, we cut you down.
You see, by end of December, inflation was 54.1% compared to the projected 28.5%. So it looks like all the projections,
they are out of gear.
Yes. So I'm wondering how he could boldly say that they've turned the corner.
But William, you're a driver. If you're negotiating a curve, you slow down. Don't you slow down?
I don't. The metrics are poor, and the metrics.
No, practically, you're a driver. If you're negotiating a bend, do you go at top speed?
Not at top speed, but
Yes,
the
but
vehicle that you are in, the one tire is missing, the door is missing. You can turn as many corners as you like. The car is not progressed. Can I say? That's what I'm saying. That's the long and short. The scorecard
We cut you down.
Johnny, the scorecard is bad, and Ghanaians must just sit there and accept this, so that next time we have another budget reading, the projections are even halved and slashed. Oh, come on, something has to give.
If you look at the main budget and all the targets for 2023, overall GDP growth was supposed to be 2.8. We have been told that we'll do about 1.5. Non-oil revenue GDP growth of 3.0%. We haven't done any of that. And then end December inflation rate of 18.9. He's telling us that we're going to do 31.3. So I'm saying all the indications are that we haven't been as prudent as we said we're going to be. So, as Dr. Isumeni is saying, the economist is saying this morning, we should tighten our belts for a very serious economic crunch going forward. And as I say always, we heard here this yesterday that Mr. Kwampienu said he had tried to call the finance minister.
He doesn't pick his calls.
These are gurus in the space.
People who know.
And during the primaries for the NDC, we heard Dr. Dufour say that he had called the finance minister and his team, the team, to offer his advice because he's been there before. And I'm saying this on record. I've said this before. Dr. Dufour told me in 2019 that in 4 years this economy will crash. He said it to me personally. I was sitting in front of him in his office. He told me we were discussing a document.
This is a man who comes to the table as a governor of the Bank of Ghana and a finance minister.
And this followed Mr. Amidou's revelation on the Japan deal and all that.
Yes.
It wasn't him. The way they were handling was just what was not correct. It was something that they had been thinking about. And he told me point blank that the way the economy is going in 4 years, it was that specific. 2019. For 4 years, 2023, the economy was going to crash.
And here we are.
Listening to me. I mean, that's it. He told me and he gave me reasons. Because he said they were running the economy like a corporation. And that's where he even raised the issue of public finance and corporate finance. They were
totally different thing.
And there's a political element in running the economy. So you have to take notice of all the elements. You don't just behave as if it's a company and one day you wake up and if you don't feel like running the company, you can shut it down and let everybody go home. But a country, if you run it like that and you shut the country down, you cannot say all Ghanaians should go home.
No, go where?
And then the country will collapse.
Go where?
So he was advising that they take certain measures. But all that he wanted to do, he went ahead beyond that conversation with me. According to him, during the primaries, he said it, that he called them. He called people in the government and said, look, let's sit down and share ideas because I've been there before. And the numbers show when I was finance minister under President Mills, these are the numbers. And these are the numbers we are doing. It didn't work. Just yesterday we had the tape from Kwampienu saying And this was a man who stood for president. If it wasn't because of what happened to him, the court case that brought him down, he was good. He was doing very well in the race towards becoming president.
Look, within the
he's done some big things
within the economic space, he's a giant.
You see,
you can't.
So and now you are saying that in Kabum, people are calling you earlier. You mind them when the economy is crashed. You are talking about in Kabum.
But this government doesn't have a spirit of collaboration. At the time when they decided to go to the IMF, there were calls, for them to collaborate
a plan.
In the same way the Century Report came about into being. You get your best brains, because at the end of the day, it should be Ghana first.
Even the Century Report, it was only Kwame Pianim who attended. On the side of the MPP, then they were in opposition.
The man is a financial economic guy.
So he went there and gave his ideas, but he was the only one from the stock of the MPP who went to Senchi. So you are right when you say the government doesn't have a spirit of collaboration
at all. And in fact, confirmed by Oxfam, they say, and I always say, I'm not one to juxtapose IMF. This IMF was better than this. I'm going to IMF already, Nankasana. It's not good.
It's bad news.
But Oxfam said in 2015, the way that the IMF deal was negotiated in Ghana is one of the best that they've seen, and they attributed that to collaboration. This government cannot pick a cue from that.
For me, it comes back to the earlier point that minimcracy. Ahumaswokracy, bureaucracy, ahantancracy, mintiobia-cracy. That is what has brought us here. Because if they were listening, for a long time, we were asking what the IMF program looked like. What you were presenting on behalf of all Ghanaians. What does it look like? Can we see it? Because you're going to have a pact on our behalf. So we want to see what you are presenting,
Chief,
so that people can make input. They kept it to their chest.
Chief, there were facilities that the government had opportunity to go and take before going to IMF.
Yes.
There were facilities
that other African countries took advantage of.
Exactly. So this Nkabom thing that you are talking about, it is not just words. Your actions have shown that you are not a team player when it comes to national development.
You don't Nkabom. I think that Mr. Foriate's challenge is that he has no industrial input. He has only private sector. Give me 1,000 cedis, I will invest it and give you 1,002, and if I make 1,005, I'll give you 300. That's his mentality. So every time borrow. And
all those things that we were talking about in respect of the IMF conditionalities, trying to help the poor, protect the vulnerable through enhancement of existing social protection programs, including LEAP, NHIS, and capitation grants, feeding. Whatever projection they are going to make or they've made is going to be slashed by inflation. Because the rate at which the inflation is going, any amount of money you put on the table will be wiped out by inflation.
I agree.
And we are telling us that by the end of the year, we are going to make 31 point something against the 28 that you. So inflation is something that they should be working at. And the Bank of Ghana is just doing a very lazy job by just raising the base rate.
The Bank of Ghana governor in any serious country, nobody needs to advise him to resign.
So if you look through the budget,
in any serious country, nobody needs to advise. You have supervised over a system. One fiscal year, you have lost 60 billion and over 1 year, one fiscal year. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, lender of last resort, 60 billion 1 year. Look, boss, if in any serious country, his family people would have called him and told him, boss, Chief, because it's not good.
So Forata is also telling us that he's going to restore debt sustainability and preserve financial stability following the domestic debt exchange program. But he's the one going and borrowing from the treasury bill and giving people 28%. And when the banks are giving more, how can the banks compete? So you are still shifting the money from the private sector to public sector and depriving the private sector of money to produce and increase production against taxation.
Boss, let's go
No, we can't go. We have to look at the budget.
It's Johnny's bite time. I cut you down.
Anyway,
I cut you down.
Samuel Okudzeto Blackwell's expose is in. He asked us to wait till 5 a.m.
Yes. I've seen this.
What did you see?
Look, I said a month before he released this that look, the next government should identify and describe everybody's role. If you are in the government, they shouldn't say cousin of Mahama, cousin of Ken, cousin of Kwame Jepon, and you just be walking around.
If you don't have a role,
because you don't see what Gabi does.
Because
and recently when Mr. Jaku released his statement on what happened in their Mary deal, this man's name was all over the place. He hasn't come big thing. He can pick a phone and call Attorney General, pick a phone and call this man.
And prepare
everywhere you go, you hear his name.
But because he's floating, you can't reach him to cut him down. If you were stationary, you could have.
We tag him Prime Minister, and it is manifesting.
And then he will tell you that he is not a member of the
he's manifesting.
Yeah, cut them down.
It's an advice of the government.
I cut you down. Johnny's bad is up in a bit.